Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for my overview of the 0 Hour Crisis in Time Omnibus. This is the new printing from DC Comics, so let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So what we're looking at here is the 2023 printing of 0 Hour Crisis in Time Omnibus. This has come out in trade paperback, it's come out in deluxe hardcover edition, and it came out in 2019 with a 25th anniversary omnibus, which is here to the left. So this is the original printing, and this is the new printing right here, and we're just gonna look at the differences between the two omnis. And honestly, it looks the same as far as the colors and the placement of the characters. Sometimes Marvel, and I've seen it a few times at DC too, blow up the image a little bit. But I mean, even where Spectre's cape ends is identical. And of course, the very colorful spine right here. Actually, I'm a big fan of that spine. I just remembered, I think I did an overview of the 0 Hour Crisis in Time. No, this one over here, the original printing. One thing you're going to note right away is that the original printing is thicker than the new printing, and I'll talk about why when I do a comparison. But we've seen that at Marvel, and we've seen it at DC recently. And then the backs of the books. Looks like they are using the same font, honestly, and again, the same images this time around. It looks like the images are shifted over. Well, maybe it's just Kyle that's shifted over. It's interesting. But the retail price of the original printing is $150, and the retail price of the new printing is $175. The DC logo looks the same. I was looking over here, and I don't know, I think it's just my eyes. They look just a little bit bigger over here. Of course, they've taken away the 25, Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty One Day. 25, what the hell is wrong with me? 25th anniversary omnibus logo from down there and just replaced it with omnibus. And again, they've taken that away from the new printing on the spine. Now let's check out underneath the dust jacket. There we have our villain, Extant, and there we have the flaps. It's over. Your time is over. All time is over. This is 0 Hour. The sequel to, or I guess the follow-up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. And this is the exact same font and everything in the original flaps. So the image right there of Extant facing all our heroes, looking the same, but again, just a little thicker on the spine. And there's Fate up there with Starman, some new heroes that are born out of this. And then the back here. So the image looking like this. Now, I'm going to crack open the book. I'm going to talk about the stories collected in here, show off the artwork. I will have a part where I'm talking about some minor spoilers as to things that happened previously to this. And then I'll have a section where I have the extras and the back matter and comparing it to the original printing. If you want to jump around the timestamps, we'll show you where and when I'm going to be doing that. All right, let's go ahead and crack this open. Okay, let's go ahead and crack the book open. You have white end sheets, similar to the first printing or the original printing. The title page, 0 Hour Crisis in Time Omnibus, with the characters just disappearing. And here are all of the creators who helped make this happen. You have Dan Jurgens, of course, doing the main 5 issues. Mark Waid, Chuck Dixon, Tom Joyner, Carl Kessel, Ron Mars, Louise Simonson, Christopher Priest, Mike W. Bart, Kurt Busiek, just to name a few of the writers. Dan Jurgens, Tom Grumet, Daryl Banks, John Bogdanove, Jackson Geis, Phil Jimenez, and then your inkers down here. Those are some of the pencilers, by the way. Jerry Ordway, Ken Branch, Joe Rubenstein, Jose Marzan, Dan Davis, Don Hillsman, and then some of the colorists, Gregory Wright, Adrian Joy, Stuart Chaffetz, Gene D'Angelo, and Gina Going, and then some of the letters here, Gaspar Saladino, Albert de Guzman, Bob Pinaja, John Costanza, and Kevin Cunningham. And then, of course, some of the editors during the time here. And honestly, this is something I don't remember seeing the first time I read the book when it came out in omnibus format. But now they're giving credit to some characters that were created by other people. That's really interesting because usually it's Batman created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane, or Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and then Superboy created by Jerry Siegel. But now it's like Anima, Damage, and Hawkman. That's really cool that they're doing that. I'll have to see if they did that in the original omnibus. It's just maybe things I wasn't paying attention to. The table of contents, because you do have page numbers at the bottom of this book. And it is quite a lot of issues collected in here. But not quite everything, and I'll tell you a little bit about that here in a second. You do have a forward here from 2017. Talking about how the project got started, how timelines needed to be fixed. So, before we even go any further, let's go ahead and talk about what's collected in here. Here you have Action Comics 703, Adventures of Superman 516, Anima number 7, Batman 511, Batman Shadow of the Bat 31, Catwoman 14, Damage 6, Dark Stars 24, Detective Comics 678, The Flash 0 and 94, Green Arrow number 90, Green Lantern 0 and 55, Guy Gardner Warrior 24, Hawkman number 13, Justice League number 92, Justice League International 68, Justice League Task Force 16, Legion 94 number 70, Legionnaires number 18, Legion of Superheroes 61. I thought there was only just one Legion of Superheroes book during this particular time. Outsiders 11, Robin 10, Steel 8, Superboy 8, Superman 93, Superman Man of Steel 37, the Team Titans number 24, Valor number 23, 0 Hour number 4 through 0, because it is a countdown, and then stories from Showcase 94, 8 through 10, and then, of course, that forward that you got by Dan Jurgens. The book has 1,096 pages. It is the exact same page count as the previous printing. There was just a misunderstanding in the catalog. Whenever we first saw this, we thought this was going to contain more, but it's the exact same page count, the exact same material. Okay, moving forward, minor spoilers as to what sets up a lot of the stories in here. And I want to say, before I even do that, that I've heard a lot of people talk about this book and how divisive it is, and I understand that. I've heard a lot of people say that, a Crisis isn't the best place to start reading DC Comics. Nobody starts at Crisis on Infinite Earths, or Infinite Crisis, or Flashpoint, or Final Crisis, or this. Hell, I think I've even said that in the past. But my first DC comic was Crisis on Infinite Earths number 7. But I think we are now living in the age of collected editions where it makes things easier to collect and read and to absorb. So I understand that. But yeah, my buddy Alex, his first comic was the Final Crisis. So I think it really depends on the person and, of course, the story. All right, so what happened previously that I have to talk about? There are a couple of things, mainly this event called Armageddon 2001, which is what is featured here in the material from Showcase 94, 8 through 10. And in that event, we had a character from the future named Monarch who traveled to the past because, evil character. That's all you need to know. However, one of the characters, Matthew Ryder, Wave Rider, found out that one of the heroes from our timeline was going to become this character named Monarch. And as things go on in the DC Universe, it was going to be Captain Atom. However, that got leaked. I can't remember how, because it was long before the internet was the internet. Maybe it was a phone number you could call for information or rumors. But DC decided to change the character of Captain Atom to the character of Hawk becoming Monarch. And a character known as Hawk from Hawk and Dove killed Dove and became Monarch. That all happened in that event, Armageddon 2001, and there were several follow-ups. Now Monarch is sitting here and putting on his armor, and he's about to transcend time and space, if you will. The other things you have to have known is that there was a crisis in 1985, and the DC Universe tried to simplify the different Earths, dimensions, if you will. The multiverse, as we've come to call it now. So they just said one Earth, and that's it. However, there were some issues with characters like specifically Hawkman, who, even though his origin was supposed to be rebooted and retooled, it never was. And that's why we got 0 Hour as a follow-up. Let's fix everything. Let's fix the laws to time traveling. Let's go ahead and fix the people that were still messed up from the previous crisis that we never got around to fixing. And let's just make it one timeline instead of multiple timelines, because we can't have characters from the JSA exist at the same time that we have a new batch of characters. So that's what this set out to do. Also, during this time, Superman had died and come back. Batman got his back broken and got better. Wonder Woman got replaced by Artemis. Guy Gardner drank some fluid and became an alien armor character known as Warrior. Guy Gardner Warrior. And then, of course, Green Lantern. Hal Jordan. Again, it's minor spoilers, but it's happened a long time ago and it sets up the events here. Went bad. Went psycho and killed most of the Green Lantern Corps because of Coast City. Coast City was destroyed during the events of Reign of Superman, and he wanted to bring him back, but it was against the law. And he brought him back and fought the Guardians and fought all his friends and killed a bunch of his friends. And eventually becoming one with the Lantern and becoming the being known as Parallax, even though he wasn't known as Parallax during the Emerald Twilight story. So that's what leads to this. All those events, all those bad things do come into play here. So Monarch now is attacking the Linear Man, who are at the end of time. They're kind of like your timekeepers. You have Wave Rider and Rip Hunter right here. We're watching things and going, wait a second. That doesn't look right. We need to either intervene or leave things alone. So Monarch absorbs the chronal energy from Wave Rider, because Wave Rider himself, that's how he became Wave Rider. He absorbed a lot of the chronal energy, and that's something you're going to hear a lot through this particular book, and becomes the being known as Extant, because he is going to fix everything. So this is the transition from not just Hawk to Monarch that happened in 2001, but also, not the year, the event, but also the Monarch to Extant transition. And now that leaves Wave Rider and Rip Hunter going, holy crap, he's also taken our ability to travel through time. Now he's going to mess up everything, and that's where the event starts. Now, we don't kick it right off with the issue number 4. We kick it off with some tie-ins, like The Outsiders right here. And I will be honest with you, Paul Pelletier's artwork, though, nice. Most of the tie-ins are only tied in kind of like the classic Crisis on Infinite Earths. There is a white shatter, or there's just white space, meaning that time is coming to an end. What's happening? So what he's doing is he is destroying the different timelines. And much like Crisis on Infinite Earths, that is shown by white space. And much like Crisis on Infinite Earths, now it's up to a group of good guys to go ahead and grab the newest group of good guys from this timeline, our timeline, because it's the most important timeline, to fight off against Extant. So there are trickling effects to destroying some timelines. For example, Bruce Wayne, beautiful artwork here by Graham Nolan, sees that his parents are still alive. Alfred doesn't recognize him, so there's some things that are shifting in and out of reality. And this continues into the Detective Comics, and then here's Steel. Again, most of these tie-ins are just that white space. But some are really important. Some of them, for example, like Wally right here, he's about to go and cross into something known as the Speed Force. And that comes into play. Oh, Carlos Pacheco. Man, miss that guy's artwork. We just had Impulse appear a couple of issues earlier, right before this tie-in. And then we go into the main event. So it's Wave Rider appears, for example, at the end of Flash, and he's like, hey, I need a Flash. I need your help. So at the end of time, 32 hours ago, because this is 0 hour, so it's a countdown, the Time Trapper gets killed, and the Legion of Superheroes get involved. Batgirl is back, and the Joker says, wait a minute, I shot you. But that doesn't make sense, because our Joker didn't know that Barbara Gordon was Batgirl, so how would Joker know that? Little things like that. Maybe editors. But in this particular event, we also have Wally West, who's the current Flash, run as fast as he can to fix things, and also dissolves. Now, some of you know, and you've been reading the Mark Waid run, what ends up happening is that he's tapping into the time stream, the speed force. So that comes into play a little bit later. Heroes are dropping left and right, and this is what I meant about let's go ahead and fix the character of Hawkman, because we have an Egyptian reincarnation, we have a guy from Thanagar, we've got a guy that his name is the character Carter Hall, but it's spelled different. We need to fix all 4 and 5 of these characters and make them into one. So we do have some new players, of course, Kyle Rayner being one of them. He had just replaced Hal Jordan as Green Lantern, and he's now playing in the big league. Another thing that this did was also get rid of some of these characters that have been around for a while. This is Batgirl actually confronting Oracle. This is a really interesting story and just freaking her the hell out. Superman showing up at the end of that. So this, again, are trickling effects of what's happening in the pages of Zero Hour. Now, the stuff that's happening in between, a lot of it, I'm glad it's in here. But a lot of it is completely just fluffing the story out because this event, much like Crisis, didn't really need the in-between stories for you to enjoy it. It kind of just pads it out, and it, much like the way that Flashpoint is mapped, you have too many stories in here, and some of them are like wrapping up a previous storyline. So, like, the Legion of Superheroes is a 3-issue crossover that has very little to do with 0 Hours. The Darkstar 24 issue in here, again, they're doing their own story, wrapping up this particular storyline, but because there are things that are happening in the universe, you're seeing a little glitch in time. So that's about the extent of the tie-in. Here's the Legion of Superheroes as the end of an era. And that continues into the Legionnaires, and that continues into the Legion 94. Valor gets involved. Superboy comes back, the original Superboy, and confronts Connor Kent, who's this guy, because his timeline got destroyed. So it's a lot different, yet the same as Crisis on Infinite Earths, where the multiple Earths are being destroyed, and they're coming to our main Earth. Now it's multiple timelines from the future that are being destroyed, and it's having an effect on the characters in the past. And here's the Hawkman story. But the main event here is the 0 Hour. And remember when I said that some of it was to fix the aging issue? Like the JSA because of magic or because of their costume, Booster Gold representing that extreme justice, baby. Because of that magic or because of their costumes or because of the characters and their abilities, they were always kept young. So what Extant does, and maybe this is an editorial decision, is age up a lot of these characters. He's like, hey, you're supposed to be old. Let's go ahead and make you old. Killing off some of them and making them old and retiring, giving up their job, giving up like being Starman or Our Man, and making way for a new generation of legacy characters, which of course with this, we got Starman by James Robinson and Tony Harris. So there was a lot of good that came out of this. And I understand why people weren't fans of this, right? Because we didn't really need it. We didn't need to simplify the time travel elements because in about 10 years' time, it's all going to be redone anyway. And sure enough, it was. This is the Legion storyline. But Dan Jurgens is the main writer, and Dan Jurgens is the main artist on the book. Now, I do want to say, not everything is collected in here, though. People were confused and messaged me about this new collection if it was going to have the whole shebang. Not really. It doesn't have a lot of the 0 Hour issues. The issue number 0. Like, you're going to need things like Batman 0 Hour and Superman 0 Hour because these actually contain Action Comics 0, Superboy 0. This right here has Detective Comics 0, Shadow the Bat 0. And you're going to see some double dipping, but not everything is collected in here. And that's because those issue 0s were kind of like a relaunch to the characters. Like, here's the origin, here's the new origin story for this particular character, and this will now be canon. And that's what issue 0s were for. There's some that are kept in here, like issue 0 Green Lantern, and I'll explain why it's kept in here, but in order to do that, I have to talk about the final issue. So keep an eye on the timestamps in the description of the video, because from now on, I'm going to be talking about some big spoilers about the book itself, like the storyline. And then if you don't want to see that, just jump to the timestamp where the extras and the comparison are. Okay, so we have Extant. I actually really like this issue. No people have issues with this one. No pun intended. But I actually like this. This is a silent issue where Green Arrow is chasing a bad guy and then ends up getting shot and killed. But what happens is that it's actually Ollie witnessing the death of another Green Arrow from another timeline. And I thought, what the hell? I did not see that coming. Like, and that timeline disappears. And then Batman's like, yo, you need to come with us. So it's pretty cool tie-ins like that I think are awesome. And then other tie-ins that are not so well. But what ends up happening is that you find out that Extant isn't really the villain behind everything. But what ends up happening is that you find out Extant isn't really the villain behind everything. You find that out in issue number 1 of 0 Hour. You know, the JSA is aging. Batman has disappeared because Extant has wished him away. Nobody can stop this guy. And Superman has a plan to stop him and then gets knocked out by none other than Green Lantern Hal Jordan. No longer calling himself Green Lantern or Hal Jordan, but now calling himself for the first time the Parallax. So he is the true villain of 0 Hour. And the idea behind that, I thought was interesting, because you've seen Hal gone bad. You've seen him go bad in the Emerald Twilight story, where he tried to resurrect the people of Coast City with his ring, and he was told no. So what he wants to do, he used Extant. He actually gave Extant the chronal power to begin with to travel through time, and then Extant, of course, Monarch became Extant by taking the rest of the chronal power from, or energy from, Wave Rider and becoming Extant, a Crimson Fox, and then taking his little bracelet and able to travel through time. This is the Triumph storyline. That's like a 3-parter with the Justice League. But he was just using Extant because his idea is, instead of using the ring, what I'm going to do is take this power, this chronal power that I now have, and I'm just going to become a god. And I'm going to rewrite history. And I'm going to make everything right by everyone. So his idea makes sense, right? If you've had a crappy life, if your life was bad or cut short, and your world does not exist, why would you not join with him? He's like, look around you. You have characters like Alpha Centaurion, who wasn't even a character until this event, or Batgirl, who survived in her particular timeline, but now her timeline is gone. He can rewrite everything. He can make everything good again. He can make it to where Superman didn't die at all. He can make it to where people aren't suffering. And by this point, Ollie and Barbara Gordon from this particular timeline have become really close. Interesting relationship here. But of course, the heroes are like, no, we got to do the right thing. Set things the way they were. Spectre gets involved, and he even gets knocked out, because now they're dealing with a godlike being known as the Parallax. So what they try to do, in a very Dragon Ball Z way, is Wave Rider is funneling the energy from some of these heroes. And then we have Damage, who's a brand new hero. He's been around for a little bit, but he's new to the game. And what he does is he's just funneling the energy from them and then channeling it to him, so then he can create a big bang and restart the universe over. And then Ollie finally makes a decision after seeing Batgirl get killed by his friend, who's no longer his friend, because he refuses to believe, because, I mean, these guys were close. And he shoots him in the chest, and this continues into Green Lantern Zero, and that's why I said I couldn't talk about that. That's why Green Lantern Zero is in here, because that shows you what is happening when both Kyle Rayner and Parallax disappeared. So by the end of this event, the world is restored, and time is now anew. Some things are a little bit different, though. So here's Green Lantern Zero, where they disappear to. And that shows you the events of that, and then the aftermath of Damage, and what's happening with his power. And, of course, Flash, talking about where Wally went, and bringing him back, and then introducing the concept of the Speed Force. There's Superman Man of Steel #0. And this is just like the aftermath, like telling you, oh, characters are now back, and this is canon. So let's welcome everybody back. Now we're done talking about spoilers. Okay. Welcome back, everybody that just wanted to see the extras. At the end of this is where you get the new timeline. That the DC universe, as of this event, began 15 billion years ago, and then you have 100,000 years ago, and then you have the 1800s, so you have characters like Jonah Hex. Then you have 1938, the beginning of the Golden Age. So you do have characters now that have aged up. The 40s, the 50s, and who's appeared in the 50s. And then you start getting 25 years ago, and then you get the new heroic age. Meaning that Batman and Superman, as of now, have only been Batman and Superman for 10 years. 5 years ago, and then the modern time with the modern villains and heroes. This was the kickoff to 0 hour right here. 0 month. And then, love that piece by Mike Deodato Jr. So this is all collected in that 0 hour. And then you get some little bit of taste of what's to come, what new series are kicked off. And here are all the 0 issues. Remember what I said, the 0 issues were used to kind of retell the origin of these characters, but also introduce new elements to the characters and their mythos. Here are the covers, Crisis in Time covers, that are collected without text. Of course, it would be ridiculous to collect 0 hour #0 because it would just be a white page. The deluxe edition hardcover cover right there, fully in color, and then magazine covers right here. And there's also promotional posters. Like this was a promotional poster that they used for the art on board. Advertisements right there, promotional art, and this is the promotional poster by John Bogdanove and Dan Jurgens talking about this particular project, 0 hours. And this is the top secret. This is like the ash can. And then the making of 0 hour Crisis in Time. Looking at the different font they were going to use. And character designs right there of Extant by Jurgens. And then sketch and layouts of pages, internal pages done in thumbnail size. And also covers. So you have a lot of extras back here. About 90 pages or so of the extras, including the new timeline pictures right here before the font and the text is laid out. And previews, covers, original art, lots of original art. Speaking of original art, here's the concept sketch for the deluxe edition cover by Dan Jurgens, but later on they used this. And then your end sheets. Now let's look at the binding. 1,096 pages. And the paper stock is different than the first printing, I will say that. It's that new paper stock that DC has been using. Not glossy paper, but also not matte. It's kind of somewhere in between. I don't want to call it semi-gloss because it doesn't really have that finish. It's more like a satin finish to it. But actually, let's do a comparison. And also a big thank you to Organic Price Books for sending us a copy of this omnibus. So we have the original printing here and the new printing over here. We talked about the thickness of this one compared to this one, and that's mainly due to the paper stock. The original printing has that thick glossy paper that we've had in Omnis, and the new one has this almost satin finish to it. And here's your table of contents, looking the same, but I wanted to see the actual right here. Come back to this. I guess, yeah, that's really cool that they've always done it. Okay. But let's look and see what the colors look like compared to the original printing. Because whenever you're using different paper stock, the colors are going to look a little bit different. Sometimes a little bit darker, sometimes a little more vibrant, honestly. And that's depending on the type of colors they use and the ink. And one other thing about this printing I forgot about, that this one had a real tight binding for a book that was printed in 2019. And you can see more of the bleed through happening with the new printing than the original printing, compared to the way the books lay over. So original printing over here. And I remember this one, like I said, had tight binding. I had to open it up at least 15 times and stretch the spine. This one over here, honestly, had a pretty good eye for a book this size. And you do get less gutter loss in the original printing than the new printing. And now this definitely looks a lot more vibrant than the colors over here. And could be the issue too, but most of the time it's due to the paper stock. And then the way the books lay over towards the back here. So again, more gutter loss than over in the original printing. You can't, maybe if you hold it down, you can see the whole fist. But want to be as thorough as possible with these overviews. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count and build, and of course the comparison to the original printing of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you've picked it up already, if you have the trade, the deluxe edition, the actual mini-series, what you thought of the event, in case you read it, and what other event you would love to see for DC collect in omnibus format. I'm still trying to get the Armageddon 2001. I know. It's not that good, but I'm also a guy that loves The Crossing. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button. Check us out on Patreon and Spreadshirt. Have amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.